It takes a while to build up to that because I think coming out of the gate, people, and obviously they want to go big and like, oh, I want to get this person and that person. But just with anything, I mean, and you talk about that all the time with acting, like it is a grind and it's a slow build and you have to be patient because coming out of the gate, you can't expect to have these huge wins.
Hi, welcome to Kelly, where we talk about life, your life and my life, and through Kelly, we hope to inspire. I have Heather Parady on the show today, and I'm so excited to introduce to you guys Heather. She is a student of mine. I don't know if you guys are aware of the area that we film in, and my studio is in, my acting studio, but we film out of Villa Rica, Georgia. She lives in Augusta, Georgia, and she drives to acting class every single week.
Yeah.
And, but that's not the reason we had you on. We had you on because you are you have a podcast and a really, I mean, your podcast runs, you've got it down to a T. And we're going to talk about podcasting.
Yes.
And, but you found me through Kelly Talk Show and ended up signing up for my classes. And now we get to share information.
Yeah. People always say like, oh, you know, social media is a waste of time putting out content. No, it's not. If anything else, that proves it because I drive 3 hours, but it's worth it because I connected with you online and saw your show and saw your content. It's like, I want to learn from her.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's worth the trip.
Right.
And that's the power of social media and building online content.
Yeah. And so many people I've met through social media that when you meet them, you already know them.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're the same as what you think they are.
Absolutely.
It's
like
crazy.
I had a listener contact me and it's like, you go to work to me every single morning, and she's in California. She's like, you sit next in the car with me. I'm like, that's kind of creepy. But I mean, she feels like she knows me because my voice is in her, in her ear every single day.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your podcast and what your podcast represents, who your audience is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I've been hosting for about 3 years now, and it really stemmed from that same thing we were talking about earlier, just really understanding the power of content and that you can make a broad scale impact in the world, spread your message, build your brand, whatever, if you just have a little bit of a guts and consistency with it. And so what started off as just kind of a project ended up becoming just really my life's mission. I ended up turning down a couple of full-time job offers when I moved and said, no, I want to go full-time and do this. And it's been a rough ride.
Yeah.
It's been worth every second of it. But yeah, we air 3 times a week and we just interview leaders from all over the world who are building
and
awesome
you've
things.
had some amazing people on your show.
Yeah.
Like every week you're so excited. You're like, I've got so-and-so on my show.
Yeah, it's cool. And it takes a while to build up to that because I think coming out of the gate, people, and obviously they want to go big and like, oh, I want to get this person and that person. But just with anything, I mean, and you talk about that all the time with acting, like it is a grind and it's a slow build and you have to be patient because coming out of the gate, you can't expect to have these huge wins. And that's why people don't last in it because they don't have that, that long-term mindset.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not thinking, I mean, every step leads to something else. If you're wanting to get from here to here, you're not going to get there. You got to take the small step, and it's years. We even have actors on, and they talk about the connections that they've made with casting directors, and sometimes it'll take 5 years before they have that really good connection with them. Who are some of your favorite guests that you've had on? Recently, you had
Scott Neeson. Yeah, he was the president of 20th Century Fox. And then got signed on with Sony Pictures as the president, which is really cool to interview and connect with him. He recently moved to Cambodia and started an organization there. And he said, hey, you should come out to Cambodia with me. And I told my husband, like, we should go to Cambodia. And so we're still working on that part. But it's just really cool connecting with him. And whether it's like entertainment people or entrepreneurs or whatever, the story is the same of the courage of putting yourself out there when all odds are stacked against you, when it doesn't make sense, conventional sense to do it, but just having that vision and that dream to like, hell yeah, I'm doing
and
this.
you just know.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
Your heart knows. You know you can, you know if you set your mind through it, you can, other people got through, so why can't you get through?
Absolutely.
How do you, I mean, you talked about building your clientele and how you get people on your show. How do you make those connections over time?
Great question. One thing that I've noticed is, first of all, we got to start within our own network and be humble and be willing to put in the work to just start where you're at and start small. I tell people all the time when they're start beginning, like, be humble, because you have to, you might have this big dream right here, but like, let's look at what's in our hand and start where we're at. And from there, it's a matter of relationships. It's all about relationships. I mean, you talk about that within entertainment, and every time you talk, I'm like, oh, it's the same thing with podcasting and with business and all of that. When I reach out to someone, it's not normally just a completely cold outreach. I mean, you can do that, but that's more of a statistical game of like, this percentage of people will say yes, which you can do that. And that's what most people do. What's more strategic is to build your network and think about who knows who and have patience. Like, okay, this may be the person I want to talk to, but let's spend the next 6 to 8 months around their network and connecting. So when I go to that person, I can say like, hey, like Seth Godin, he's one of the top marketers. I mean, he's really known in the entrepreneurial space. And he's like, no to everybody. But when I emailed him, I said, here's my pitch. Short and brief. P.S. Here's a couple of interviews I did with so-and-so and so-and-so, which he knew.
Yes.
He has relationships with those people. So that gave me a little bit of credibility that I'm not just some girl off the street.
Right.
That I've been working.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that I do with the show. Very rarely do I reach out to somebody that I don't know or somebody who doesn't know of me.
Yes.
And if I do, it's somebody that I know through somebody else.
Right.
And most of the time they're linked to other people. So where do you want to go with your podcast? What's your future?
I have big dreams. And that's why I liked your show so much and connected with you and wanted to drive here and do this because, I have a big dream and a vision. And that's what you speak to a lot and a lot of your guests speak to. It's really the sky's the limit. I would love to travel and do more documentary style type interviews. Right now, we're just doing the podcast and have a studio inside of my home. But this year, we're going to be actually taking cameras out and going out into people's places of business and doing stuff like that. So I want to do that with my life and just travel and tell stories.
Will your husband do that with you? You'll take the whole family?
Oh, that's the plan. Let's see if we can do that.
Your husband's a personal trainer.
He's a
so
personal
you're both
trainer.
Entrepreneurs.
We are. He has an online business and works in that. He also does videography too, at a very small scale. But I'm trying to get him to build that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just so I can have a cameraman. And
so then you can have a talk show?
Yeah, and be best friends with Oprah. That's all I want in my life.
Me
it's
too.
That's it. It's not that hard to ask for.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yes. I want to be best friends with Oprah too.
I love her.
Poor, let's don't get into that. I'll go into a whole Oprah spill. I love her. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show and coming out today. Guys, again, she drove 3 hours to be on the show for 10 minutes.
That's worth it. It was awesome.
And then you'll be at the studio tomorrow night.
I will be.
As far as acting, why did you sign up for classes and what do you want from that?
Yeah, I think the communication element is what's so interesting to me because I communicate for a living through this podcast, but you can only move people so much with just words. Like the power of storytelling is so beautiful, and I wanted to get better at that. And then I'm just naturally curious about like the community around the entertainment space because you guys are just so cool and like the tenacity and the grit to do that. And solopreneurship, doing your own thing can get really lonely at times. And kind of the creative, collaborative effort is something I want to get more involved in because I don't want to create just by myself. I want to create with other people.
Yeah, love it. You killed it in class last week.
You're
so proud of you. I mean, my heart. You guys were so there. Wish you guys could come sit in on my classes. We hope that this really quick.
Yes.
Some advice that you would give back to an upcoming artist or somebody who are a podcaster just getting started. And you pretty much said you just got to keep going. You got to work within your network. But there's got to be like one.
Sure. Sure. The thing is, you already know what to do, and you already know the next step to do. Most people just don't do it because of fear, because of self-doubt, because of that imposter syndrome. The only thing different between those who, quote, succeed and those who don't is just the grit and tenacity and the bravery to do what most people won't do.
And to embarrass yourself often.
And be a beginner, be humble.
Yes, love it.
Yeah.
We hope that this segment educated and inspired you.